Well, after a long, hard-fought 34 games for each team, the MLS 2019 regular season has finally come to an end. And that means that it's time for playoffs. This year's season has been one for the ages so far. You have LAFC just absolutely smashing every MLS record, setting the record for most points in a season with 72. Carlos Vela scoring 34 goals in 34 games to set a new MLS record. And all in all, it's just been a season for the ages. And now we are heading into this new playoff format. One game eliminations only, and absolutely anything can happen. So we're just going to jump right into it. Here's how I think the next month of MLS action is going to go, starting off with the Eastern Conference. Now in the East, we have New York City FC getting the bye to the second round for coming in first place in the conference. That honestly comes as a bit of a surprise to me. I seriously thought Atlanta was just going to steamroll over this entire conference, but I guess they're having the new coach to start the season, losing Almiron, Pity Martinez took a while to get going. They found their footing, but New York City FC were just solid the whole way through, and they get the bye. New York City FC will play the winner of Toronto and DC United. Decision day drama had TFC climb from 6th place in the East up to 4th, passing the Red Bulls and DC United and clinching home field for the first round. This game, though, could go either way. Toronto FC has been up and down all season. They had a pretty good start, fell apart in April, May, June, even a little bit of July, found their footing and have been dynamite since August. But just that inconsistency really makes me question how they'll be able to perform in the playoffs. DC United, on the other hand, have been consistently near the top of the Eastern Conference all season. They've been in the playoff spot since the very beginning. They've just been consistent the whole way through, but they were not able to score against an FC Cincinnati that had 9 men on to get home field advantage for this game. Now, honestly, my choice for this game comes entirely down to the home field advantage. If DC had home field, I'd say this was their game, but because Toronto's at home, I'm going to have to go and say that this game is going to be won by TFC. Next match, Atlanta, New England. Good for New England to finally get back into the playoffs, finally have a team that actually looks decent. It's been years of pain and struggling for them, but it sucks that they finally get back into a playoff spot and they have to go up against the reigning MLS Cup champions, Atlanta United. Honestly, Atlanta is just such a good team, and then when you have to go in and play them at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta in front of 70,000 fans, that's just an environment that is incredibly tough to go into. This team proved in the Champions Cup that they can win in that stadium in big game environments this season. I think just how they played in the Champions Cup proved that in a one-game knockout stage, if Atlanta is at home, they're pretty much unbeatable. So because of that, I'm going to say this game is Atlanta's. Next up, the Philadelphia Union and the New York Red Bull. The Union have been surprisingly on it all season. I was not expecting them to be anywhere near as good as they were. They did drop off quite a bit. At one point they were in first place in the East, but then they end in 3rd. I like their chances, but they're going up against a New York Red Bulls team that's always a contender, coming off of last season where they won the Supporters' Shield. The Red Bulls are just so weird because they're a team that's been so dominant in the regular season MLS, but they've never really put it together in the playoffs. They've never won an MLS Cup. Philadelphia have been very, very good at home this season, but in this sort of scenario, I just think the New York Red Bulls have more experience in playoff games. They know what it takes more to succeed in the playoffs, and yes, they have struggled to have success in the playoffs in recent years and really throughout their whole history. But I just think that this New York Red Bulls team is good enough that the first round is not far enough for them, and because of that, I think the Red Bulls are going to go through. Now, in the second round, we're going to have New York City FC versus Toronto FC. TFC has had playoff success at Yankee Stadium in the past. However, there is no Sebastian Giovinco to score a hat trick anymore. And just in that tight, confined stadium where New York City has just been playing all season, they've been absolutely dominant there all season. That's their turf. It's different from any other pitch in MLS, and they know how to play on it better than anyone. So because of that, I think New York City FC are going to go through in that matchup. Now, Atlanta and New York Red Bulls, the two teams that were the top of MLS fighting for the Supporters' Shield all of 2018. This matchup, again, I just think Atlanta is a lot better than their regular season says. They had that terrible start, and I think that really hurt where they finished up in the standings. They really probably should, on paper, have won the Eastern Conference. And again, same thing as I said for the first round. In Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that crazy atmosphere, there's nothing else like it in MLS. It's just incredibly hard in a one-game playoff for an away team to go in there and put up the performance necessary to win. So again, I think Atlanta United is going to be moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. So to crown the Eastern Conference champion, it would be New York City FC versus Atlanta United at Yankee Stadium. This game would have a lot of things going for it. You'd have Atlanta playing on that tight pitch. You have New York City trying to qualify for their first ever MLS Cup. Two relatively new MLS teams butting heads for a chance to go to the final. But again, the Atlanta fever comes over me. And just the thing with MLS is you never want to doubt the big strikers, and you never want to doubt the goal-a-game strikers. And just like Josef Martinez scores a goal a game almost for Atlanta, and just that X factor in the playoffs, to have a guy who you know is going to be able to score almost 100% of the time, just is so huge. And he's not Atlanta's only option. They have so many options up front. NYCFC is a very, very good football team, but Atlanta I think last season we saw in their MLS Cup run, they were basically like no question going to win. They were unopposed, and it's just hard for me to go against them. So because of that, even though the game will be at Yankee Stadium, I think Atlanta United are going to go through to MLS Cup. So there's my prediction for the Eastern Conference bracket. Now we'll go on and look at the Western Conference to see who I think Atlanta United are going to play in the final. And in the Western Conference, in the bye slot, you have LAFC moving straight on to the second round after that world-beating regular season. Yes, they dropped off ever so slightly near the end, but that was after they had already clinched the Supporters' Shield, already made sure that they were going to have home field all the way through. This team just was the destroyer of worlds throughout the entire MLS regular season. Third straight Supporters' Shield winner to set the single-season points record in MLS, which was very interesting that it's happened 3 years in a row now. And then Carlos Vela, 34 goals, and he only played in 31 games. To have a player who scores over a goal a game is just unheard of. It's unreal how good he is, how good this team is around him, how good this team is as a whole to be able to have Carlos Vela in a position to score 34 goals in an MLS season. Just LAFC right now is the cream of the crop in MLS, and they deserve that bye. To see who plays LAFC in the second round, Minnesota United at home against the LA Galaxy. Minnesota finally have a good season. Their fans have been some of the most loyal in the league since they joined MLS, and they finally get their first playoff berth. And they play the LA Galaxy and Zlatan Ibrahimovic in his first ever MLS playoffs. Now, I know Minnesota's home field, they've had the more consistent season, but with LA Galaxy, Zlatan Ibrahimovic in his first ever taste of MLS playoff action, knowing that the winner of this game goes back to LA to play LAFC, do you not think Zlatan and the Galaxy are not going to bring out every single ounce of energy and talent and just everything that they have is going to go into this game, because they definitely want to play LAFC in the next round. Just the pure just fantasy of having LAFC, and Carlos Vela's LAFC at that, playing Zlatan Ibrahimovic's LA Galaxy in the playoffs, it can't not happen. So because of that, I'm so sorry, Minnesota fans, but just the temptation here is too good for me not to say that the LA Galaxy are going to go through. And next, perennial playoff appearance, Seattle Sounders going up against FC Dallas. FC Dallas, such an interesting team because they're very young, you don't hear about them that much, and now here they are in a playoff spot going up against Seattle. Now, I feel like for FC Dallas, they are on the up and up right now. I feel like they're going to get better in the next coming years, but to have a playoff match in Seattle against the Sounders in a one-game elimination, especially a Seattle team that continuously make the playoffs, when it comes to playoffs, you don't get more experienced than the Sounders. And just, I feel like everything right here is just tilted a little too far towards Seattle for Dallas to be able to pull off the upset. And because of that, I think the Sounders are going to go through to the second round. And the final first round match from the Western Conference, Real Salt Lake versus the Portland Timbers. Now, Real Salt Lake, the reason why they're here is how good they were at home this season. 12-4-1 at home, that's over a 65% win rate. Portland got screwed early in the season because their home field was under renovation. They started on the road for way too long, and they were way out of the playoff spot before climbing their way back in. After making it to MLS Cup last year and losing to Atlanta, but just Portland seemed to have a regression this year. Real Salt Lake, I was not expecting this from them. They had a much better season than I think most people were expecting. And just the fact that Real Salt Lake's dominance at home is the reason why not only are they in the playoffs, but they have a home playoff game. You don't see them fumbling that home advantage that they've been rolling with all season in the playoffs in a one-game elimination. And so I think Real Salt Lake is going through. Now in the second round, you have LAFC versus the LA Galaxy. In what might be, if this happens, it may be the greatest MLS game of all time. Just watching the regular season matchups between these two teams, it was exhilarating. It was some of the greatest North American soccer I have ever seen. I can't even imagine what a playoff game between these two teams would look like. All I know is that it's something that I want to see with every fiber of my soul. I want this to happen. Like, LA Galaxy has had LAFC's number this season. If anyone can beat LAFC in a one-match elimination at Bank of California Stadium, it has to be the Galaxy. There's no one else who's just showing the ability at Bank of California Stadium that the Galaxy have, especially since the Galaxy did it before LAFC's end-of-season fall-off. Yes, the Galaxy have been inconsistent this year, they've been up and down, but against LAFC, they seem to have it figured out. But even when they've seemed to have it figured out and be scoring offensively, their defense just hasn't fully been there, and Carlos Vela and just all of LAFC's offense has been able to find ways through. This matchup will be one for the ages. Every piece of common sense in my body right now is telling me LAFC has to win this game, but just the Zlatan effect, it has a grip on me, and it's saying, do you really think Zlatan will let it happen? Honestly, I could see this game being 4-3 for LAFC with Zlatan having a hat trick. It's going to be something ridiculous like that. It will be the greatest football match ever to take place in MLS, 100%. But I have to give it to LAFC. They've just been too good this season. Especially they're going to be more rested than the Galaxy. The Galaxy would have just played against Minnesota United a couple days earlier. And I just think that with the extra rest, like that literally is what's dividing it right now for me, is if it wasn't for that extra rest, I'd say it would be a complete toss-up, but just because LAFC would have that extra rest, I'm going to have to say LAFC would win this game. Seattle Sounders versus RSL. Again, a complete toss-up. Besides LAFC, all the playoff teams in the West, which is so close to any game between them, is a complete toss-up. But if this were to be the second round matchup for these two teams, RSL would be away from home in Seattle. And just that home field advantage in MLS means so much. It really is OP, and the fact that they're making every playoff matchup right now be only one home game, it gives the team that's at home such a huge advantage. And like, if RSL was slightly better on the road this season, I'd say that they would have a good chance. But the thing about RSL season is they were 12-4-1 at home. They were world beaters. But 4-9-4 on the road, which is pretty good in MLS. But it does not inspire confidence in me in their ability to go to in front of 40,000+ fans in Seattle and pull out a win in a playoff environment. Again, just the Sounders fans are going to be going insane. And just the Sounders have so much playoff experience. 2016 MLS Cup, 2017 MLS Finals. They've been in the playoffs every single year of their existence. They know how to win playoff games, especially at home. So, again, I have to give this one to the Sounders. And the Western Conference Final, for me, would be LAFC versus Seattle. First off, I just want to point out that of the 4 teams I have making their conference finals respectively, 3 of them are MLS 3.0 teams. It's amazing how these new teams have caught on so quickly and become major contenders so fast. It's kind of amazing. It kind of really shows the mentality of new owners and how they're willing to spend money real fast to get good real fast. But anyways, LAFC Seattle. Seattle is known for their ability to defend and push games out and get wins in these tight playoff games. Whereas LAFC is just an offensive juggernaut. It really would be a reminiscent matchup of the 2016 MLS Cup or 2017 MLS Cup, where Seattle essentially sat back and let TFC come at them. LAFC just has so many options. Diego Rossi, Carlos Vela, so much star talent is on this team. I have no doubt in Seattle's ability to hold them off for as long as possible. I have no doubt in Stephen Fry's ability to make save after save after save and hold Seattle into a game. But again, I just don't see LAFC being stopped this year. They're just too good right now. And so because of that, I have moving on to MLS Cup Final 2019 and the hosting MLS Cup Final 2019. LAFC. So that's the bracket for the West. I think MLS Cup Final will be Atlanta United from the East, LAFC from the West. These 2 teams might be the 2 greatest MLS teams ever assembled. There is an argument that Atlanta United's team from last year is probably better than the one from this year, and I probably agree with that. But right now, these 2 teams are, at least on paper, the best teams in MLS. Atlanta United in that Champions Cup match showed that they can win huge one-game elimination matches, but they did that one at home. I'm not sure they could do it not in front of 70,000 fans in Atlanta. LAFC all season have been world beaters. This game is the final that I wanted to see at the beginning of the season. I said Atlanta, LAFC are the 2 best teams in MLS right now. A match between the 2 would be legendary. What a match this would be. Just the amount of top-end talent on both of these squads. Just the Carlos Vela versus Josef Martinez, 2 of the greatest goal scorers MLS has ever seen. It would be a matchup for the ages. An MLS Cup Final, truly to remember. It would be just a high-flying, super offensive affair. This would not be like the past 2 MLS Cups where you've had one team that's obviously more defensive or not as top-heavy as the other team. This would be a true top offensive-heavy team versus top offensive-heavy team. Whoever scores more wins. Who do I think would win? It would be played in LA, so LAFC has home field advantage. LAFC have been the best team in the MLS all season. I don't really have a doubt that LAFC should win MLS Cup this year. But that Champions Cup performance from Atlanta, just how good they were that game is in the back of my mind. And there would be a significant rest between the previous playoff game and this one. So 2 fully rested teams. Atlanta's extra game will probably not be taken into account. The thing is, LAFC has to do it to prove that they are the best team MLS has ever seen. Because 2017 Toronto dominated MLS on a level that no one had ever seen. And then they won MLS Cup. Last year, New York Red Bulls set the record for most points, but the way they did it makes them not remembered as much. LAFC, this spectacular season, if it doesn't end with an MLS Cup, is not going to be remembered. And I just think right now that LAFC is too good to be beaten, especially at Bank of California Stadium. Can you imagine the disappointment of their fans if after this year that they've had, lose at home. And yes, Atlanta's looking for back-to-back, but I just don't think that this year's Atlanta team is quite as good as last year's. Pity Martinez just hasn't been the dominant force that we thought he would be. And I think if we had the Pity Martinez that was in the Champions Cup, this is an incredibly close game. But that game right now, that Champions Cup game, seems like a bit of an outlier for Atlanta. Yes, they've been great all season, but they were exceptional in that game. And I have no doubt in their ability to do it again, but LAFC, with the exceptions of the split at the end of the season where they already had won the Supporters' Shield, have been exceptional all year. And because of that, because they've just been exceptional for longer, I think the 2019 MLS Cup champion will be LAFC. So, those are my predictions for the 2019 MLS playoffs. Strap in, it's going to be a crazy month. That does it for this video. Click like if you like it. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, link down below in the description. And I will see you next time.